we're changing the agenda.
This isn't here for the first one. They're gonna move it to later on.
Well, to amend the agenda.
Good afternoon and welcome to the joint meeting of the City Council and the Minnehaha County Commission. The meeting will start in 60 seconds. We'll call the meeting to order, the joint meeting of the City of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County. We'll start with the roll call on the city side. Council members Aguilar, Anderson,
Here.
Entman,
Here.
Erpenbach,
Here.
Jamison,
Here.
Karski, Rolfing,
Here.
Staggers.
Present.
And the county recognizes that there is a quorum present with Barth Kelly and Heiberger present. Shall we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? And Commissioner Barth, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start out the meeting with approval of the minute or of the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Recognize Commissioner Barth.
I'd like to amend the agenda to move item 1 to be the last. That would be just before old business.
I have a motion to move item number 1 to the bottom. We have a second by Dick Kelly. All those in favor on the county side?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
I need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
Mr. Chair, I'd move item 1 to item 6 on the agenda.
Is there a second for that?
Second, Jamison.
Roll call, please.
Council members Anderson?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Motion passes, I don't know how many there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 0. Thank you. Move on to item number 2. Consider motion to accept the withdrawal of petition number 13-03 to vacate that portion of the South Powderhouse Road. Pat Herman.
Hello, everyone. Pat Herman for the County Planning Office. This should be fairly easy. This is a withdrawal of a petition to vacate a road, and during the process of that vacation, or looking at the vacation, became apparent that this house is going to be used by the city when they're reconstructing the intersection of Highway 100 and Arrowhead Parkway, and so the petitioners understandably did not want to invest any more money into their house and requested just to withdraw this petition. It was legal at it, so we just need to take action tonight from both bodies saying that they accept the withdrawal of the petition.
Do we have a motion or any discussion on the county side? Do we have a motion?
I'd make a motion, Madam Chair, to withdraw that item.
Motion by Commissioner Barth, seconded by Commissioner Kelly. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 3 to 0.
Is there a motion on behalf of the city?
So moved. Second, Anderson.
The motion is made to withdraw the petition by Councilor Rolfing, second by Anderson. Roll call, please.
Council members Anderson?
Yes.
Entman? Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Motion passes 6 to 0. Moving on to the next item. Item number 3 is the fiscal year 2014 budget hearing for the joint county-city budgets. First up, we have the Siouxland Libraries.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to share our plans for 2014 with both of you. And I would also like at this point to thank and recognize the Siouxland Library Board for their support. As many of you know, 4 of the members are appointed by the city, 1 member is appointed by the county, and then there is also a county commissioner representative on the board. Serving Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County is indeed an exciting and pleasurable activity for all of us who work at Siouxland Libraries. We now have 5 city facilities and 8 rural branches, in addition to a children's bookmobile, which you might be interested to know this summer is making 38 stops every 3 weeks to daycares and schools in our community. So that's a pretty significant piece. In addition, then we also have a mobile app and our digital branch, which is our website. And the library staff deserves more than a small thank you for not only their help in preparing the budget, but in all of their commitment to providing library service to all the residents of Minnehaha County. And then, of course, our finance team, particularly Ann Bowden, is, as I mentioned before, a saint, and Jody Fick, who is our assistant library director, who helps prepare the budget in more ways than you can imagine. Certainly, we're excited about the fact that Prairie West opened a couple of 3 weeks ago, and we're not nearly as excited probably as the neighborhood, but we've been received very well by everyone in the neighborhood. So that was a big project for us and allows us to, again, continue to expand our services and meet the needs of our growing community. In addition to that, we've also installed Wi-Fi at all of the rural locations now, so all locations throughout the county have Wi-Fi accessible. We continue to find ways to increase the awareness of our services throughout our community. Part of that is dealing with different organizations and finding ways to partner. Just an aside, we have an opportunity to partner with the public broadcasting system to promote libraries. So we think that's a great opportunity. Another piece that we concentrate on constantly is delivering current and relevant materials. You really can't be a library without having current and relevant materials, just as retail establishments need to make sure that their products are what people are after. So we're constantly finding efficient ways to do that. Of course, we are interested in providing fast and efficient service, not so much for the fast in and of itself, but the efficiency so that we can then utilize our staff in more ways for direct customer service and to meet the informational needs of our customers. And we've certainly been able to do that as a result of the RFID, radio frequency identification, and the automated materials handling system that we were able to install throughout all of the city branches. And this has made a difference in the way we handle the materials. We handle them fewer times, but our sorts are much faster, and we're able to reorganize our courier route because we have a courier that goes to all of the locations every week. So if you check out a book from the Ronning branch and you return it to the Cayley branch and it actually resides in Baltic, it all happens like magic. And we do float a lot of our collections so that everybody does have access to the newest and most current materials. Certainly we want to promote reading, learning, and discovery. Reading is the basis of what we do, and in spite of the fact that, you know, there are folks who talk about the demise of the book, it's a little like Mark Twain, and his death was somewhat exaggerated, and so is the demise of the book, quite honestly. While electronic resources are growing rapidly, it's still less than 10% of the book market, and it's less than 6% of the circulation in many libraries throughout the country. So the book is here for a significant period of time yet. And then, of course, we've always been about early childhood literacy and introducing kids to reading, and parents are our gateway to do that. And we want to expand that piece during the course of this next year. When we look at the reading slide, which is kids who do not read during the summer have more difficulties when they go back to school in the fall. So we make sure that we're providing quality programs in the summer with our summer reading activity and the tutoring that we do. And we also know that there are cutbacks in Head Start programs and that the school district has a waiting list for their preschools. So we have an opportunity and an obligation to help fill that gap. So we will be putting additional emphasis on the early childhood education. Our capital program this year basically addresses our collections, and that is the standard budget item for our collections. It's a capital expenditure. We also then this year will be adding a digital scanner. And this is actually, it's called a digital document station, which allows for transmitting documents by email, smartphone, your tablet, USB ports. You can print, you can copy. It's kind of a magical machine as well. And we do have a significant amount of use for people who are actually faxing information. And so this would replace the traditional fax machines. Our budget, our operating budget, includes $5.5 million for personnel. And as we all know, service industries have significant personnel budgets because those are our true assets. Personnel is key to everything that we do. And then the rest of our operating budget accounts for the $1.3 million. And this would include things like facilities, program support, the various operating and technology, day-to-day running of the library. And I think that, again, this is a tribute to our staff, $1.3 million for operating, $5.5 million for personnel, and the services that we deliver to the community and the resources that are available. That seems like a pretty significant return on our investment. In building the operating budget, of course, personnel being the big portion, HR develops that budget for us, and that takes into account the wages and benefits. And this year, our personnel budget, there are two items specifically that account for that budget beyond the norm. One of those is that we now have Prairie West on board in 2014 for a full year, so that's some additional staffing. And then we have a significant number of retirements coming up in 2014, and the payouts for those retirements will be approximately $217,000. So we have staff who are retiring who have been with us 37 years, 45 years. So we have a lot of staying power in the library field, but we will be losing a significant number of staff members to retirement. Then, of course, there are those typical inflationary increases, the growth of our community, and expanding the services. Another significant item on the operating budget, you'll see the true-up of $94,000. That actually takes into account the rotting roof, which has just been replaced. The roof is now on, and I believe the gutters were just adjusted today. So rotting is in good shape. And then that also includes some other furniture that we were able to do in some of the other branches that we won't be looking at for 2014. And then the Prairie West Library, as I mentioned, will be a full year. And we have 5 full-time staff that we hired to operate the Prairie West branch, and all 5 of those were actually transfers from other departments within the library. And so in reality, we added only 2 full-time positions to open Prairie West because we were able to gain some efficiencies and reallocate staff from some of the technology that we were able to implement. Our initiatives include the early childhood literacy, PC reservation, which is a software that will replace the software we currently have that allows us to manage our public computers. And this is for people who are signing up to use the computers and to print. So rather than doing all of that by hand, this is done by software management. So people have a certain amount of time that they can use the computers. They are alerted when their time is up, and then they can also print from those. And the software that we currently have is at end of life, so we'll be replacing that. And then we also, in our tradition of looking at our facilities and making sure that they're meeting the needs of our customers, we want to look at the Cayley branch, which is old and tired now, and being one of the heaviest used facilities in our system, we need to look at it and make sure that we're able to use that space most effectively for the new technology that we've implemented, as well as some of the cosmetic changes that can come into play in lighting and so forth. And there are some outside improvements that also need to be made. And then we're doing some additional landscaping at some of our branches to replace and repair some of the landscaping. The current and relevant materials, this is a matter of, we try to benchmark ourselves with other libraries in our region as well as those in the nation, and we are in hot pursuit, as I mentioned earlier, of the norm or the average. We're a little bit below our benchmark libraries, but we think that by concentrating on the current and relevant materials and making sure that we have what people need and working directly with them, that we will surpass those friends of ours. Our fast and efficient service truly this year was built around two things. We have implemented outsourcing the cataloging and processing of our materials so that we receive those shelf ready, and that saves a considerable amount of time and allows us again to put more effort into the direct service. And then with the implementation of the RFID, the new checkout systems, and the automated materials handling, for those of you that haven't seen this, when you look at this picture, the opening in the wall at the far end, the back end of the photo, is where you return materials. And on the outside, you'll come up to an ATM-looking structure, and you place your materials on a conveyor, and it checks the materials in, it resensitizes them, and then sorts them into one of those 11 bins. This happens to be the downtown version, into one of those 11 bins, and they're ready to go on the shelf or to go to other locations. So we can develop a sort finally for the location where the books are returned, and we can do a sort that allows us to send those off to other libraries. So that has made a significant difference in how we do our work. The programming that we do clearly is to promote reading, learning, and discovery, and we do this on all age levels. Adults come to the library for many of the same reasons that kids do, and more. And with the adult programming, we're dealing a lot more with people in terms of teaching computer skills, helping them apply for jobs online, because most places now require online applications, so we have classes to help them do that. Then we also provide programs that revolve around literature and reading, information, Social Security, all those kinds of things that people are doing to live better lives. And teen programming has received a great deal of emphasis in the last number of years, knowing that teens require and need a different kind of programming than kids do. So we've put a lot more emphasis in this. And we're doing a number of things with the teens so that they are involved in presenting those programs and developing the programs. And then we hope that what happens is we also get a cadre of volunteers, because a number of them have helped out then with summer reading programs and the tutoring program. Children, of course, are our future, and we want to make sure that we're providing significant programming for the kids and their parents. So we have enhanced that piece, both in terms of the programs that we offer specifically for children and those that are family-oriented. And we're presenting those programs at times when it's more convenient for families to be there. If both of you are working in a family, then 10:30 in the morning is hardly the best time to have a family story time. So we're doing those in evenings and on the weekends. During fiscal year 12, over 1 million visitors came into our locations and checked out over 2 million items. So that was a new attainment for us. And just to put this in a little bit of perspective, if we were to have put a $20 price on each of those items that went out, that means we circulated over $40 million worth of items. That's just the materials that check out. That's not the programs that we offer, the story times that we do, the reference questions that people come in and ask. So I think that one of the things that we can remember is that your investment in libraries is taken very seriously by our staff and our community. And we make every effort to make that investment reach as many people as possible. And this was a quote that I had read recently, but it makes a lot of sense. Our business model is one where we share few resources with the many. And again, none of us could have access on our own to that much material. So it does offer a considerable benefit to our community. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions for Mary?
Councilor Stegers, please.
Yes. Mary, on the new library and the staffing there, I wasn't quite clear about that. You said you took 5 full-time staff members from the system and put them there, and then you said something about 2, and I wasn't quite sure.
When we budgeted for the branch, we knew that we needed 5 full-time employees. We were able to, with some of the technology changes that we implemented and a vacant position, hire only 2 new positions.
Okay.
Now, we were able to fill all 5 of those positions with transfers, so we're filling those 2 positions within the system. So we're really just a net gain of 2 full-time positions by reallocating staff and hiring fewer new people than we would normally have done.
Okay. And one other question I have is about the Ronning Branch. How old is that library?
Good question. It was built in 95, opened in 95.
And so we had a new roof put on. How much was that roof?
I think it was around 89,000. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion or questions for Mary? Seeing none, I will look for a vote from the city first, since they are the managing entity.
Move to approve the library budget, Erpenbach.
Second, Jamison.
There's a motion been made by Councilor Erpenbach, second by Jamison. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Anderson,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes?
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Mary, I'd like to thank you for your presentation and all the things that you have done for Minnehaha County and the City of Sioux Falls in enhancing our library. We truly have a gem here in Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County, so thank you very much. Moving on, Rural Metro's presentation. Oh, excuse me, the vote county, sorry.
I'll make the motion.
Have a motion and a second to approve the Siouxland Library's budget for 2014. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Now we can move on to Rural Metro with Darren Ketchum.
Good evening, councilors, commissioners. Darren Ketchum, Metro Communications Agency. We run your 911 service for you here in Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County. Just a couple of people I'd like to thank real quick. One, the Metro Management Council. As you know, you both have members that sit on our board, and they offer a great amount of oversight and guidance to us. So thank you for the work you put in throughout the year. Honor Aker and Jennifer Disberger here from my staff. If they'd please stand. These two are responsible for making sure that we accomplish our tasks and we come in on time and under budget. So they have a tremendous job and they do a great job every year, so thank you. All right, this is kind of the things that I had on the agenda to talk to you about this evening. I'm going to go through it somewhat quickly, give you an opportunity to ask some questions, and certainly I'll go into more detail should you need it. In 2012, you can see the number of 911 calls, administrative calls, and calls for service that we've had. What we've had over in 2012, and we're seeing the trend hold true through 2013, is just a normal slight increase every year in 911 calls and calls for service. One thing that we do see is we see declines in our administrative calls, which is good for us to see that reduction. It means that people are getting to the resources they need without having to call us for assistance. In 2012, of the 190,000 calls for service that we handled, you can see the top 10 call types for non-medical calls, and then the top 10 types of medical calls that we have. Medical calls make up about a little less than 10% of our volume. So it's really a fairly minor in numbers portion of our work, but a very major portion of the responsibility we have to ensure the public is safe. Here's our revenue that we project, and if you look along the left side, I've shown you 2012, our latest complete year, our current year, and then 2014, our next year, which we're asking for your approval today. On the right side, you see the graph, which depicts into the future through 2019. We feel it's important to show you that far in advance due to the sunset provision of the 911 surcharge revenue. In 2018, that surcharge will drop from $1.25 per line to $1. So we will see a significant decrease in revenue in that time period. Overall, we do see a slight growth year after year. In September is when we'll have our first full year of receipts for the updated surcharge. We have seen slight growth in the surcharge, a number of lines on a monthly basis, so that is good news. Looking at how we make up the rest of the money that it takes to operate the agency, the other 40%, the Minnehaha County pays for 75% of that. You can see the 12, 13, and 14, and then we've also projected based on our current expenses and revenue projections what we believe that contribution to be out into 2019. Just as a point of reference, the highest amount that the county has paid, most recently as 2010, was $392,000. So you can see the reduction in expenses, and then the other half of the puzzle is the increase in surcharge revenue has enabled us to reduce their contribution. Similar story with the City of Sioux Falls. They make up the majority of our non-surcharge revenue. And the City of Sioux Falls' highest contribution to the agency also came in 2010 with $1.19 million contribution that year. So you can see significantly down from where we were only a few years ago. Again, going through 2019, we do project significant increases going forward. I throw this in there because you may recall we have an operating agreement with the City of Brandon that we collect revenue from them based on a percentage of calls for service by their police department. That fluctuates a little greater based on their calculation comes into account after the expenses are calculated. So if we decrease expenses, that also decreases our revenue for the City of Brandon. Our highest expense area comes in the personnel area. You can see where we've been the last few years and where we project going forward, and this is a factor of a few things largely related to health insurance. As you know, as a standalone entity, we do not participate in the City of Sioux Falls or Minnehaha County health insurance programs that are self-insured. We purchase off the market just like all the small businesses in our community do. We have budgeted for approximately 14%. What we think going forward, that may be, we're with a new company, we're with Dakota Care. If you remember in the past, we've been with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and those were kind of the percentages that we had seen historically. So we continue to budget with that until we have some solid historical information. Our operating expenses, you can see they've dropped in recent years, and a lot of that is due to just changing the way that expenses are incurred. In years past, there has been expenses that were the services or benefit were utilized by multiple responder agencies. However, those expenses were recognized at Metro. We've worked with those other first responder agencies to allocate those specific costs to them to more accurately account for true Metro expenses. So that's a large reason for those expenses. And frankly, the 2011, 2012 budget years caused us to tighten our belt, and we have not went back to the years prior to that. In 2007, have you know, the operating budget for Metro Communications was over $1 million. And so we're asking in 2014 for operating expenses of $650,000. Great decrease. Capital expenses, you can see we don't have a lot of capital expenses. However, over the next 5 years, beginning in 2015, we do project those out with the need to purchase a 911 telephone system. We are working with the State 911 Coordination Board. We've been identified as a beta site for the Next Generation 911 project. And that may free up some funds that we've projected in the capital area in the future. Here's where, when we started the year, that we wanted to end 2013. And I'll tell you that we've had probably a little more turnover. I don't know that we will attain the 95% retention rate in a field that typically sees 20% turnover. 5% is real aggressive, but we try to be real aggressive with maintaining our personnel. Some of the other highlights that I would Point two on this include continuity of operations planning. That's kind of the, what do we do if we lose power to our building? What do we do if we have a line cut here? What if we do if there's a fire? How do we operate if there's a significant disruption in our ability to provide services? What are those essential functions and systems and personnel necessary to continue to provide service? Another item that we'll kick off here in October is our strategic planning process. We think that'll be an important process going through 2014. We'll wrap that up to guide how we operate over the next 5 years. 2014, you can see some similar objectives. Maintain our accreditation. We want to increase the number of quality assurance reviews that we provide to our staff, just to ensure that we are offering a high quality service and that we can verify that through random reviews. So in closing, I guess the main point that we bring to you is our 2014 budget is mostly based on contractual or CPI-based increases, just the inflation that you typically see year to year. We're not asking for additional FTE. We're not looking to initiate new programs or services. We're simply looking to carry on the services that we have for the past several years. Next generation is going to provide some great opportunity to us, as will our strategic planning process. So certainly if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, that concludes my presentation.
Any questions for Darren?
Councilor Anderson, please.
Darren, you spoke to surcharges and that they were going to be sunsetting and that they were going to go down from, I believe, $1.25 to $1.
Yes, sir.
With departments always looking for revenue and everything, are you looking at other areas to replace that revenue that's going to be lost?
Short answer is no. One of the things that we'll look at through this strategic planning process is what do we want to be involved in. We have had discussions with other entities outside of our current jurisdiction, whether we want to provide 911 and dispatch services to them. Certainly we're open to that. The difficult part with that is the differing technologies that are out there among all the jurisdictions. The switching costs are very extreme to move from one jurisdiction to another to provide those services. In a lot of cases, what we've seen, the switching costs are almost so great that you just don't see that near-term payoff to make it worthwhile. So I'm short of asking somebody to pass a new tax or go into a completely different line of business that generates revenue. We've actually got out of the revenue-generating business a few years back when we operated a radio maintenance shop. We chose to do that because, one, it was losing money, and two, there was a local vendor that already provided that service that we were competing with, and we felt it better to leave that competition to the local providers.
And then also you spoke about Brandon calls, and you stated that they were police calls. Do you do all the emergency calls or just police calls in Brandon?
We do all their calls. However, the calculation is based on their police percentage of calls because all of the other, they're the only police force in the county with exception to the Sioux Falls PD and the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office. The other responders they have are volunteer or contract, similar to the arrangement with the city and the county. So we don't count those volunteer calls for their fire department against them. We kind of look at it as the county's already paying for that portion.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Councilor Ruffing, please.
Could you go back to the slide, the one that showed the type of calls that you get in early? There. These are all emergency calls, are just divided into non-medical and medical. Is what you're doing here.
Yep. So that 190,000 number, this is how they would break down if we were to pick the top 10 types.
Okay. I don't understand. I guess warrant service.
So a warrant service, if you commit a crime and there's a warrant for your arrest, or if you fail to pay a ticket and they issue a warrant for your arrest, or those types of things, the sheriff will go out. What's that?
Why would I call 911 on that?
That's a call for service. So call for service are generated from 911 and non-911, so administrative calls. So we have 175,000 admin calls a year. So that's our 3,677,000 number. That also counts if an officer just gets on his radio and says, hey, I'm going out to serve this warrant, or hey, I'm pulling over this car. That also counts as a call for service.
Okay.
So a call for service is not a telephone call. A call for service is maybe a traffic stop initiated by an officer. It may be a warrant service initiated by an officer. It may be civil process initiated. It may be a 911 call that necessitates a fire response. All of those are considered call for service. So it doesn't necessarily mean a 911 telephone call.
So that call would also go to the dispatcher, so he knows what's going on and be able
Absolutely. So if an officer initiates a traffic stop on the radio, they come up and they talk to a dispatcher, and that dispatcher handles that call just as if they had dispatched the officer to a crime scene. They'll maintain contact with the officer on the radio until he clears the call, he or she
you
clears
get it also.
Absolutely.
And the reason for that?
Officer-initiated calls are just as dangerous as emergency calls. You know, you never know if a traffic stop, who you're going to pull over. If it's a convicted felon, that's dangerous. So to maintain that officer safety, we maintain constant communication with them, where they're at, what they're doing, do they need assistance, those types of things.
But doesn't the dispatcher do that automatically too?
We are the dispatcher.
You are the dispatcher?
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't realize that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Look for a motion on the city side to approve Metro Communications 2014 budget.
So move Anderson.
Second, Jamison.
Motion was made by Anderson, seconded by Jamison. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Council members Anderson?
Yes.
Entman? Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. I'd look for a motion from the county side.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Darren, for your presentation and for the work that you do with 911. Thank you for your agency. Next up is Siouxland Heritage Museum, Bill Hoskins.
Good evening. It's always interesting coming up here. It seems like the museum budget is one of those complex things. After all these years, I don't think of it as such, but the Siouxland Heritage Museums were created in 1974 through a joint cooperative agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County. We actually have some of our attendance happens in basically three areas: the old courthouse, at the Pettigrew, and outside the museum walls through outreach. Outreach is about 36% of our attendance. Some of our numbers. Attendance was up about 4% last year in 2012. We had visitors from 49 states, 28 foreign countries at the old courthouse, 48 states, and 14 foreign countries at the Pettigrew. The staff presented over 2,000 programs, educational programs and tours on and off site. We served 82 schools in 21 school districts. We do provide free programming for schools within the City of Sioux Falls or Minnehaha County. Our buildings were open daily, a total of about 5,325 hours. That's both at the Pettigrew and the Old Courthouse Museum. And rental attendance, those people using the building for things like weddings and so on, was up about 37% last year. We have 5 budgets, and this is pretty much how they total up to what we operate in. 3 are tax-based budgets: the operations budget, which we're really talking about tonight, also the Pettigrew maintenance budget for the building owned by the city, the Pettigrew Museum, the old courthouse maintenance budget. The county owns the old courthouse museum. They provide that budget. And two revenue budgets, the Museum Special Enterprise Fund and the Museum Store Fund. I'm going to start off talking about the revenue funds. In some ways they're easier. The Museum Enterprise Fund was established in 1995 to receive revenue and account for expenses associated with the rental of space in the museum system, sponsorships, and for the provision of programs, events, services for which a fee is charged. The annual budget is something that you need to adopt tonight. That's according to the state auditor. It's a budget developed by the museum board. I have several board members here tonight, Diane Metley, Sandy Dean, as well as Michelle and Jeff. Those funds are administered by Minnehaha County, and you receive an annual report on the Enterprise Fund every April where we talk in more detail about it. You look at the past history. I've been lucky. Our income has exceeded expenses in the Enterprise Fund the last 5 years, and with a little luck, will again this year. The Enterprise Fund for 2014, I'm asking for a budget of $187,764. Now, what's included in that budget? Well, our educational programming costs. All of the expenses for providing education program in the museums are within the Enterprise Fund. Supplies for collections management, the acid-free supplies for boxes, paper, whatever, are in the Enterprise Fund. Exhibit materials. These are the materials we use to build our exhibitions. We have 6 galleries at the Old Courthouse Museum, several at the Pettigrew, and about half of the cost of exhibit materials is in the Enterprise Fund, about half in the operations budget that we'll talk about in a few minutes. We hope to do a new introductory video at the Pettigrew. The one that we have is a VHS. It was made in 1998. It's getting a little dated. We really need to do another one. Another thing, expense in the Enterprise Fund for this coming year, we want to replace the Star Lab. Now, Star Lab's a program that we've been doing since 1983. We actually have two currently, the good one and the one that we use as a backup. The good one was purchased in 1998. The backup has a few more stars than there are really in some strange spots. We want to replace it. This new one has all LED and is a better piece of equipment. In the 1998, we'll move into sort of our backup point. Also, we have several staff positions that are actually budgeted in the operations budget, but a portion of the cost is paid for through the Museum Enterprise Fund. And that is our events coordinator who works with those rentals and our exhibits assistant. And approximately a third of the cost for those positions is actually paid by the Enterprise Fund to the operations budget each year. The museum store budget. The museum store fund is a revenue budget, and really it accounts for the expenses and revenues associated with the operation of the museum store. That's another budget that you're supposed to determine tonight, vote on tonight. The funds are administered by the county, and revenue from the fund in excess of expenses can be rolled over and retained for use by the museum in future years. Some of the things we have, we're asking for a budget of $34,000. It basically covers the purchase of store inventory, advertising for the store. The store is basically staffed by volunteers and work experience program and a few full-time staff, or part-time staff. The part-time staff is included in this budget. We have a number of hours. They'll actually get paid out of the operations budget, and the store will reimburse that. That's a process we've been doing for a number of years. Also, we're asking for some of the funds, the profits from the store, to be transferred over to the Museum Enterprise Fund to help support our educational programming. We have two maintenance budgets. The old courthouse maintenance budget is a budget determined by the county commission for how they're going to maintain the county's building. And I bring it up for reference. The funds are tax-based. The funds are administered by the county. Any balance at the end of the year goes back into the county's general fund. You can see where our trending has been the last few years. Budgets have been down. They're back up a little bit in 2013. Actually, 2014 is also holding about the same as this year. We're asking for $67,285. Basic projects, it's a 125-year-old building. Some of the things we're doing are fixing steam traps. There are 98 steam traps in the building in all kinds of obscure places. We're repairing steam traps. We have a main sprinkler valve that needs to be replaced. We have a continued changeover in lighting. As incandescent light bulbs are being phased out, we're replacing them with LEDs in our galleries. Also, a project to replace the glazing and do repairs in basement windows are some of the things featured in the old courthouse maintenance budget. The Pettigrew maintenance budget, again, I bring it up for information, is a budget determined by the City of Sioux Falls, the mayor, and the council. The funds are tax-based. Funds are administered by the county each year. Any funds that remain at the end of the year, there's a true-up, and those are returned to the city. You can see where the Pettigrew maintenance budget has been. Probably one of the most, and for 2014, we're asking for $33,935. We have an ongoing project to replace the storm windows and work on the windows at the Pettigrew. There's approximately 125 windows in the building. Each window is unique. There are no two windows that are the same size. We are basically systematically custom going through and rebuilding all the storm windows and reglazing them. The project includes materials but not labor. Our staff is doing the work. Staff and volunteers are doing the work. We are asking for a new telephone system, the ShoreTel system at the Pettigrew. There's money at the Pettigrew for that. We are continuing to change over our exhibit lighting there. And you'll see that there is a reduction in some of our utility costs. The big dog is the museum's operations budget. That budget is determined tonight in the joint budget hearing. It's tax-based. That budget amount is split equally between the City of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County. The county administers those funds. All the funds remaining at the end of the year are split equally and returned to the city and county general funds. This year we're asking for an operations budget of $978,583. The 50% on that is $489,291. Our operations budget includes all our human resources. We do have 16 full-time positions. It accounts for 91.6% of our operations budget. There are a 1% cost of living adjustment included in this, an 8% increase in health and dental, and step increases for eligible employees. And then finally, our operational expenses, $81,630. This includes a small increase in, of I think, $5,000 in our exhibits costs. But other than that, it's the exact same budget that we have this year. The budgets that need to be adopted tonight are the operations budget, the big one, the Museum Enterprise Fund, and the museum store. And at this point, if you have any questions, I would be happy to.
Councilor Stegers, please.
Yeah, Bill, I was just wondering about this new phone system for the Pettigrew Museum. I don't know how much that costs, but it doesn't seem like a telephone system for the Pettigrew is, you could buy a real cheap, cell phone.
Well, what I'm aiming for is we are now the only department in city or county government that does not have the shore telephone system. The phone system at the Pettigrew dates from 1993, the old courthouse, and essentially it's the same phone system at the Pettigrew. And it's our hope to figure out a way to get new phones in both buildings. In 2014, I will, the county in the course of its budget hearings did count that out of the old courthouse museum maintenance budget. It's certainly an expense, but it's really an effort to bring the phone system currently. It is a voice over IP system. It will reduce the number of telephone lines that we're paying for and renting. And so the annual cost for the telephone system should decrease appreciably, but I don't have exact figures on that. I'm working most specifically with Monty Wadabach of the county IT department in getting that system, but that's the long and the short answer.
Okay.
Do you want to know how much it is exactly?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah. Yeah.
Commissioner Kelly, can we move on with the questions while you're looking that up if he wants that answer?
I'll let Bill
book.
I got a question, so I'll let him look it up.
It is $3,500.
$3,500. Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Commissioner Kelly.
Bill, you said that there's a 4% increase in the attendance. Do you have the numbers for attendance other than events, other than the rental events?
Yes.
And do you have it for the Pettigrew and for the courthouse?
Last year, our attendance was 8. Last year's attendance was 82,493.
And that did not include people coming to wedding receptions or anything like that?
No, that's total.
I'm sorry. And then how about the Pettigrew?
The Pettigrew attendance was 9,132.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Bill?
Councilor Ruffing, please.
I want to know, Bill, which state failed to show up at the main museum here?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I actually think it was Hawaii.
I was thinking it probably was that. Yeah, okay. I'm just curious.
Are there any other questions? With that, I would entertain a motion from the county since we are the managing entity.
Make a motion to approve the budget.
We have a motion.
I'll second if that's for operations, enterprise, and store.
And that is for all three. We have a motion and a second on the county side. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
On the part of the city?
On the city side, I would move approval of the operating, enterprise, and store funds for the museums.
Second.
Motion was made by Erpenbach, seconded by Rolfing. Any further discussion? Vote, please. Roll call.
Councilmembers Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously for just the operations and the store? All three?
I meant to say all three. If I
Okay.
did not, I apologize.
Okay,
Yes.
all three.
All three.
So motion passes unanimously to fund fiscal year 2014 Siouxland Libraries Museums. Thank you, Bill. On to old business. Is there any old business?
Oh, Madam Chair, it would go back to item number 1.
It was put on as item number 6 when it was deferred.
Right, but we don't, I guess I don't have old business on mine, sorry. I apologize. I'm reading
That's
a
okay.
different agenda.
Yeah, and is there any new business? Then we will move to item number 6, which was deferred from the first item, which is a public hearing to consider a request to rezone property from A1 agricultural to rural resident, RR rural resident. And Scott Anderson.
Yes, thank you. Scott Anderson, representing the County Planning Department. As you know, this is an item that was continued from your last meeting, July 23rd. It is a rezoning request. There is a 2.3 acre parcel which sits adjacent to Pine Hills Addition development, which is on East 41st Street. The applicant is requesting to rezone the lot currently to rural residential. Currently, the lot does not have a building eligibility under the current zoning. The applicant is requesting to rezone the north 1/2 of this parcel, which is about 1.3 acres of the property, to rural residential district in order to allow him to construct a single-family residence. The rural residential zoning district requires a minimum lot size of 1 acre, so there is only potential for 1 residence to be constructed on this property. Access to this lot will come off of South River Bluff Road right away. And there was some discussion at the last meeting about the maintenance of that road, as you recall. It will be up to the property owners there to maintain the road. It's not being maintained by Split Rock Township at this time. Currently, the lot would be allowed to be operated off a septic system, but there has been some discussion with the City of Sioux Falls about a sanitary sewer line that will be extended and which would be able to provide service to this parcel. Once that sanitary sewer line is extended, the applicant or the property owner would be required to hook up to that sanitary sewer district. The Planning Commission heard this item at their June 24th meeting. The request was presented as part of our regular agenda, and there was a public hearing, and it's being advanced to you with a recommendation of denial due to a split decision. The Planning Commission, the city voted 4-0 to approve the request. The county voted 3-1 for denial, and I've included the minutes for your review. So tonight I'll go through a couple of quick slides. I think we're all familiar with this, but you have a couple of options. You can either take action to approve or deny the rezoning request. So with that being said, I'll go through the slides, and I will also indicate and tell you that the applicant is in the audience if you have questions. So as I indicated...
Motion to approve.
Okay.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second on the county side. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1.
Make a motion on the city side to approve.
Is there a second?
Second, Rolfing.
Motion's been made and seconded. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Questions on this?
I'm sorry. Yes, please. Councilor Anderson.
Maybe our planning, Mike Cooper? When we're discussing expanding services to this area, what's the cost of those services and who's going to be incurring those costs?
Mike Cooper with City Planning and Building Services. This property is located approximately 1/2 mile east of the Sioux Falls city limits and less than 1/4 mile to the north of the current city limits. It's within what we call Tier 1 annexation area, which means that within the next 3 to 5 years, it could be serviced with city utilities, and that would be dependent on the development requesting it or other action that would initiate that rezoning, that annexation. The cost to the specific property owners is going to vary from lot to lot, But typically for a 1 acre, the cost recovery for water, sewer, other things is going to start out with that $10,000 to $15,000 range. And then on top of that, you'll have hookup charges. So it could, by the time you're all done, it could be in that $25,000 per lot range. But again, that's a very general estimate without a detailed engineering plan.
Okay, and this is something that the property owner has agreed to, that when we build out to that area, they will hook up?
Yes, they would be required to incur those costs, and they have agreed in the past to allow a sanitary sewer easement through their property. So that would be another reason why they obviously would agree to future sewer hookups.
Thank you.
When it's annexed.
I have a comment from Commissioner Kelly.
Well, I was disappointed that there was no opportunity for discussion on the county vote. Kind of like being in front of a railroad train. I'd like to take this opportunity to explain my vote. I think this is clearly just an eligibility that we're granting, and I do believe that we're going to see this come back and haunt us. I sympathize with them, and I wish there was a way we could do it, but I believe that we're ending up granting a building eligibility, and I think we're opening a door to what's going to happen around the fringes of the city now. This won't be the last time we see this application, or a application like this. Thank you.
Councilor Staggers, please.
Yes. Let me just briefly say something and then ask a question of Mike. Yeah, I'm glad that we had a good vote tonight on this. I mean, it's just simply pure property rights. You own the land, you ought to be able to put a house on it. I mean, that's just simple to understand. But Mike, on the sewer hookup, can you clarify this a little bit? Is this going to be mandatory right away when the sewer gets to the area for them to hook up, or do we give them some flexibility?
No, when property is annexed, if they're within, I believe it's 500 feet with a public sewer that they have to hook up.
Okay.
So that's by ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
But again, it would only be after they're annexed.
Yes.
This is a public hearing, so are there any proponents? Did you want to say anything? You don't have to.
Darren Blair. I see the sewer going in, and we want to hook up to it, and we've signed the easements. It's going to service a lot of the property owners around there, and I look at it as a good thing coming through.
Okay. Are there any opponents? With that being said, we do have a motion and a second on the table from the city.
Are there any other questions? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Anderson,
Yes.
Entman,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. With that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment from the county, please.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion from city.
Move to adjourn on the city side.
Second. Rolfing.
Roll call vote, please.
You don't need
No
one
vote.
just to join it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think we should note that
Thank
Councilman, or Commissioner Bennigan is in.
Commissioner
here now.
Benniger has joined us.
Is in the house.
Sorry, I was trying to keep my rank.